Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's just jump right in. When you think about the absolute richest people on the planet, what actually comes to mind? For a lot of us, there's this pervasive myth of the ultimate billionaire salary. You know, the idea that massive wealth is just the result of a gigantic corporate paycheck piling up in a totally safe traditional bank account over time. But honestly, that couldn't be further from the truth. Today, we're deconstructing the blueprint of one of the most prolific wealth builders in modern history. We are looking at the all-in gambler himself, Elon Musk, and we're going to break down exactly how he built his empire. So ask yourself this: did Elon Musk get rich from a salary? Seriously, think about it for a second. Do you really believe his fortune came from a traditional biweekly paycheck, carefully squirreled away into a 401k? It's a surprisingly common misconception, but the reality of it sets up a massive reveal for everything we're going to cover today. And the short answer? Absolutely not. The reality completely shatters that whole salary illusion. Extreme wealth, and I'm talking about the kind of wealth that literally reshapes industries, comes from incredibly risky, high-stakes bets. And not just any bets, specifically the ones that the experts loudly and very publicly predicted would fail. Most of Musk's fortune actually came from a handful of investments that pushed him right to the absolute brink of bankruptcy. Let me just repeat that. To reach this level of success, he had to risk total ruin. So let's break down exactly how that happened, starting right from the beginning. Chapter 1, the first big wins. Okay, we need to rewind the clock all the way back to 1995. The internet is basically in its infancy. To give you some perspective, most major businesses didn't even have a simple website yet. But Musk saw the future, and he was totally willing to suffer for it. He and his brother Kimball started a company called Zip2. Their grand plan? To help physical print newspapers create online business directories and maps. But let me tell you, it was not glamorous. The intense struggle of this first venture is legendary. Elon didn't have some luxury penthouse. He literally slept on the floor right there in the office. When he needed to shower, he had to go to a nearby gym. He poured absolutely every waking hour of his existence into this one singular focus, grinding through the absolute hardest days of building a startup from zero. Well, that grind totally paid off. In 1999, the computer giant Compaq acquired Zip2 for an absolutely staggering $307 million. And since Musk held a roughly 7% share of the company, that acquisition netted him around $22 million. He was just 27 years old at the time. Seriously, think about what you would do with $22 million at age 27. Most people would buy a yacht, hit the beach, and literally never work another day in their lives. And this right here perfectly illustrates the difference between a normal mindset and Musk's mindset. Back in 1999, the general consensus was super clear. People simply did not trust online payments. Typing your credit card into a computer, that sounded totally crazy to most people. But Musk had this absolute conviction that digital money was the future. So instead of retiring to an island, he made an insane decision. He risked $12 million of his newfound fortune to start an online bank called X.com, which, as you might know, later merged with a startup called Confinity. That merged company eventually changed its name to PayPal. Fast forward to 2002, and eBay swoops in and buys PayPal for $1.5 billion. This time around, Musk walked away with roughly $180 million after taxes. So here's the crucial point. By his early 30s, he had enough money to fund totally luxurious lifestyles for several generations of his family. He had practically won the game. But as we're about to see, just living comfortably, that was never his actual goal. Chapter 2, Betting It All on Space. So it's 2002, and Musk decides that rather than enjoying the spoils of that huge PayPal victory, he wants to build the future of humanity. And to do that, he decides to risk his entire PayPal fortune. He takes $100 million of his own cash and invests it to create SpaceX. When he announced this, people literally laughed out loud. At the time, the aerospace industry was completely dominated by massive governments and deeply established billion-dollar defense contractors. The idea of a scrappy Silicon Valley startup building orbital rockets wasn't just seen as highly improbable. Industry experts called it completely impossible. And honestly, at first, it looked like the experts were right. Step by painful step, it all fell apart. Launch 1 failed. Launch 2 failed. Launch 3 failed again. Just imagine sitting in a control room watching tens of millions of dollars of your own personal wealth literally explode into a massive fireball in the sky. By 2008, he had burned through his capital. He had enough money left for exactly one final rocket. It was a complete do-or-die moment. If Launch 4 failed, SpaceX was dead. But
Launch 4 succeeded. And because of that single, incredibly tense, successful flight, SpaceX went from staring down the barrel of bankruptcy in 2008 to instantly securing a massive contract from NASA. You really have to emphasize this in your mind. One single successful gamble, right at the midnight hour, saved the entire company. What everyone called a reckless, foolish gamble transformed into a private aerospace titan that today is worth hundreds of billions of dollars.
Chapter 3: The Tesla Gamble. Now, we need to jump back slightly to 2004, right in the middle of him building SpaceX. Because I guess one impossible company just wasn't enough. He made a multi-million-dollar investment into a young electric vehicle company that, you guessed it, the experts swore would fail miserably. Back in 2004, the public opinion of electric cars was absolutely terrible. People thought they were little more than glorified golf carts, slow, ugly, and entirely impractical for real daily life. But Musk's vision was absolute. He believed electric transportation was the inevitable future. But, as you can imagine, that vision did not pay the bills right away. Tesla nearly went bankrupt multiple times in those early years. And that brings us to the dramatic climax of this entire explainer. The 2008 financial crisis hits the global economy hard. Musk later admitted that he was so dangerously low on personal funds, he didn't have enough money to comfortably keep both SpaceX and Tesla alive. It was basically like choosing which child to save. He was struggling just to make payroll, and outside investors were slamming the door right in his face, completely refusing to provide more funding. He was forced to invest almost everything he had left to his name. But against all odds, his unwavering belief in the face of total financial ruin eventually paid off. He weathered that massive 2008 storm, and that initial investment into an quote-unquote ugly, impractical car company multiplied thousands of times over. Tesla completely transformed into one of the world's most valuable car companies, completely upending the legacy auto industry and serving as the bedrock foundation of his enormous personal fortune.
Chapter 4: Expanding the Vision. Now, you would logically think that conquering digital payments, private spaceflight, and electric vehicles would be more than enough for one lifetime, right? But Musk chose to apply this exact same high-risk framework to completely new frontiers. He started placing massive bets on entirely different industries. There was SolarCity, targeting clean solar electricity to help solve the energy crisis. Neuralink, aiming to create brain-computer interfaces to actually help people with serious neurological conditions. And xAI, jumping straight into the incredibly competitive artificial intelligence race to build systems that will shape the future of human civilization. The common denominator here? He absolutely refuses to just sit back and watch the future unfold from the sidelines.
And really, this brings us to what we can call the Musk playbook. If you want to understand the structure behind the madness, it basically comes down to 3 steps. Number 1, find a massive problem, something that impacts humanity on a grand scale. Number 2, take enormous risks that would completely terrify normal investors. And number 3, think decades into the future, rather than just obsessing over next quarter's profits. This is the repeating pattern for every single major investment he has ever made.
Chapter 5: The Ultimate Lesson.
As we wrap up this explainer, we really need to distill everything we've looked at into one core takeaway. His greatest investment wasn't his money at all. It was his absolute, unshakable conviction. He accepted failures, he endured massive criticism, he risked losing everything. Now look, not every single investment he ever made succeeded perfectly. But the key to this specific type of wealth generation is that the few bets that did succeed generated extraordinary world-changing returns that completely dwarfed any of the losses. So what should you actually take away from all this? The goal here isn't to just blindly copy his specific investments. You don't need to go try and build your own rocket company in your backyard. The lesson is to understand the mechanics behind this level of massive success. It's about the sheer power of long-term thinking, doing the careful research when everyone else is running away, and having the courage to take calculated risks when you truly believe in the data. Because when you combine those 3 traits, you get a single individual reshaping the world across online payments, electric vehicles, spaceflight, renewable energy, and AI. Whether history ultimately views him as a visionary hero or a highly controversial entrepreneur, there is simply no denying that his method of high-risk investment has completely altered the trajectory of the future. Which leads me to leave you with this final thought. How will you apply the power of long-term thinking and calculated risk to your own life? You might not be building starships, but what massive problem in your own life or your community requires you to take a bold risk? What could you achieve if you stopped playing it perfectly safe?
Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this sparks some immense curiosity for your own future. Keep learning and keep looking forward.